Hi everyone, and welcome to our discussion today. I'm Bogdan Lupo. I'm the head of marketing at Emporix, and today we're going to have a discussion about the evolution of commerce. What do we understand with it? Try to hammer down on some of the buzzwords that everyone is using left and right without actually grasping the breadth of what they mean. And for this, we want to do it a little bit differently. We're going to talk to Udo, who has been around the block for some years. He's been in this area for a long time. Udo is the chief sales officer at Emporix as well. And hopefully we're going to get his insights on the evolution of commerce and on the actual technology and decision drivers that he encounters on a daily basis talking to prospects and companies. So Udo, thanks again for doing this and welcome.
Thanks, Bogdan. Thanks for having me. Yeah, interesting topic, and yeah, let's see where this drives us. Important, I think, is to mention that this is not a sales pitch. This is not trying to convince somebody that product A or B is the better one, but maybe share from my personal background my view on the market and the evolution. So I was lucky that I started working basically at the same time when the internet became commercially relevant, right? So it's more than 20 years ago, almost, and that I've seen, due to this long period, how this business of B2B, of e-commerce evolved, and yeah, I'm happy to spot some light on where we are now and how this evolution yeah, got us here.
Great, thanks a lot. So let's start this off. Who is the person that's driving any digital transformation in the commerce, in the e-commerce section? Who's in charge of like re-platforming or managing a project of this size?
Yeah, so interesting question, because I think there has been evolution in that area earlier. I mean, what does mean earlier? This business exists maybe for 20 years now. So I remember when the internet became relevant to commercial aspects, right? It's not that long ago, and so it used to be the IT department. It used to be the CIO, the one that overlooked the whole IT infrastructure, and they also were responsible for commerce and commerce projects, because it was one aspect of IT at the end. Nowadays, when we look at very complex online experiences, web shops, but also more sophisticated use cases, then it's mostly a very different department, which is called e-commerce department, or e-commerce. The head of e-commerce is the persona, the head of technology, commerce, the online experts at the end. They can be part of the IT organization, but sometimes and mostly they are not. So they are really a different speedboat, a different organization located in a different building. Sometimes not even talking to IT. I've seen that a lot. So it's really becoming an own practice within companies, and the head of e-commerce, with a lot of technology inside, is the main decider, sponsor, but also the guy to talk to.
All right. So basically, we're moving away from having this being a technical decision or a requirement from a technical department and going more towards a business decision that can be used in the strategic vision of any client's company, right?
Yeah, so the driver is, I mean, e-commerce, in my eyes, is the only practice within a company that generates revenue, right? You have a lot of IT components and tools that help you accomplish tasks like ERP or email systems and so on. So they are tools that help you do things, and they cost money. E-commerce evolved to be an investment for companies, right? Because you drive business, it's directly attached to earning money, to open new channels, to compete in the market. So that's the driver at the end. But I wouldn't say that the decision is not technical. There are two types of companies and e-commerce players. So from the customer side, the ones that really use e-commerce platforms and tools as a as a help, as a tool, in terms of it does what I want it to do. I sell online, so I need the tool in order to show products, to do checkout, to do the payment. But it doesn't drive business because it's I sell commodity or I don't have competition in the market. That's the one part of the business, and then I have the part of the business that is in high competition areas that want to differentiate in the market through technology. They want to do something very special. They have special use cases which are unique, and nobody else has that. So they need to come up with a solution that nobody else offers in the market. So really tailors to their needs. So this is the second part of the market, the ones that want to lead through technology. And there are different personas within these companies. On the first mentioned one, it's the ones that want a out-of-the-box solution that does what I want to accomplish. Hopefully easy, hopefully not expensive, and that's it. So different drivers, and the ones that want to be a technology driver, that's a little bit more complicated because it's a real stake within the company. It's an investment to compete, and you always hear these examples. Who does that best? The Amazons, the Netflix companies, who show who lead the pack in terms of what's possible in the market. And if you want to be like them, you need to act like them, and that means you need to drive and be technology leaders.
Yeah. So technology as a driver, not as a tool. I think that's an important point to take with us. And okay, so what are the biggest roadblocks or the issues that come up in such a big project? Because I would assume, like, we're not talking here about a very small shop that's selling t-shirts or something like that you could solve with a subscription online to any solution, but like larger, more complex commerce use cases, the effort is going to be high. I would imagine to develop and think about what strategic elements to implement in a replatforming project. But what are the main roadblocks that keep them using their maybe outdated solutions or maybe like a patchwork of solutions?
Yeah, so to sort it out, we talked about the ones that are okay with a standard solution because it does the most common things that I would expect in an e-commerce environment, and they are okay with where they are, and they are okay with out of the box solution. But we want to talk about the ones that want to differentiate in the market and want to become technology leaders, right? And mostly these companies have decided to do that because either they don't cope with the requirements right now that come from the business line, from their customers. They are not flexible and agile enough with the current solution. So they took the decision to go that road in becoming a technology leader. And this is a major change within a company if you do it for the first time. And it has just a few aspects on the technology part. I mean, you can just buy a new technology and then you are fine. It's not the case. You need to change a lot of things beyond going for a different technology approach. It's adjusting the organization, adjusting, maybe refining the processes that you want to digitalize in a different way. And then, yeah, use the right architecture and the right technology is one of the parts, but not the only one. And yeah, the roadblocks are to sit down and maybe be aware of what that means as a whole, because it's not just a tool. It's not just a solution that you can buy. It is basically changing a lot of stuff.
All right. So why do it then? I think we talked about why to do it, but I think.
Well, no, I mean, it seems like, oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds complicated, yeah. But there is no other option, and that's the point. I mean, companies that face competition, that see every day that their competition is taking away their shares because they lead through technology. Yeah, they come up with new business models. There is a pure player in every vertical, in every sector of the businesses that that you see in the mirror coming closer, and they will overtake you if you don't act now. So it's not an option, and that's I think that's the point. It's not easy, but you have no option, because that's where this industry is going. If you want to compete in that area, in online, in e-commerce, and you have competition because your product is not unique, maybe there are others out there, there are options, then you rather think about how you can compete in that market, or you really will be out of business. That's the only choice. There is no option.
All right, so I think everyone is going to get on board. I actually read a quote. I was trying to remember the percentage, but I think it was like over 80% of companies are going to redevelop their entire digital architecture in the next couple of years. It was a quote by Gartner. I'll find it and put it in the link below the video afterwards. Right, so now, let's say the decision is made, so the companies understand they want to change something. The options right now are to move towards a more composable solution. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what is the composable approach about, and what does it do differently than a solution that they might already have in place?
Yeah. So this composable commerce term was shortly defined, recently defined by Gartner, I think. And I mean, there is nothing new and nothing. There will be no Nobel Prize for inventing this. The architecture paradigms are clear. When things get complex and you need to have more and more features and functions throughout the whole e-commerce journey, you need more and more components because there is no solution out there that can cover everything at a high level, right? Solutions that you can buy out of the box, they can do things pretty okay. Let's name some of the functions like PIM, so product information system, or order management or content management. They can handle things at a certain level, but when you have high requirements, high sophisticated requirements, you need special solutions that are specialized maybe in doing this at the top level or doing it for a specific industry at the top level. And that means you need to integrate components or services from different vendors. There is no vendor that can do everything perfectly. So, and that this adds complexity. It adds complexity. You need to deal with different services and you need to integrate them. And hopefully there is a standard who makes it easier to integrate components. And these are the defined standard is the API standard that we commonly use, right? So to make it even possible to compose or to orchestrate all these services. And yeah, that's the way it goes. Once you need tailored solutions, you need more components, and it adds complexity definitely compared to a monolithic approach, which would be the counterpart. A monolith is great doing things at a certain level. And as I said before, if you don't have high requirements, because let's say you sell a commodity product that only where you have a monopoly, for example, you have no competition, you just need to enable your online channel. That's perfect. You can use out-of-the-box solution. But when you have high sophisticated requirements, you need those components. And yeah, it adds complexity and you need to deal with this complexity. The question that sometimes needs to be answered is, why do we talk about composable commerce now? Why wasn't it an option 10, 15 years ago? Because the concept is great, right? But there is a reason which is very physical. And if you look in the evaluation of IT in general, complexity and when you add different multiple services to your stack, they consume more processor power, and they consume more storage, they consume more internet bandwidth. And these kind of things, they weren't available 10, 15 years ago at that level. So nowadays, nobody really cares about storage, right? I was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I sold storage boxes that were so huge, like a small, tiny house. Nowadays, you don't have this problem anymore. And that's the reason why it became relevant to businesses using smaller components, smaller services, and combining them, because the bandwidth just got magnitudes of orders higher, and it's not anymore an issue. The concept with the service-oriented architecture and the composable architecture isn't really new, but it wasn't relevant or it wasn't practical 10 years ago because the bandwidth wasn't there. So what we basically did in this industry is raised the complexity for the sake of resources that we need more. And the gain is to get a higher level of functionality and get a higher level of competitiveness in that market. The user experience just became insane due to a lot of services added to the stack.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to the user experience. Like, people are not only they're used to be able to do anything online, shop anything online, but right now you have all of the other components that get into the mix. You want to be able to do it off of your mobile app. You want to be able to solve even B2B commerce cases very quickly without having to be, within the confinements of your office building, and, having secure access to everything on the go, or even introducing IoT devices into the mix. So composability gives you this freedom, right? And
I would
adds to
even
the,
say,
yeah.
it's a prerequisite in order to do this kind of scenarios, right? The what you mentioned are basically components that add complexity to the stack as well, right? You have multiple touch points, and these multiple touch points need to be combined and composed and orchestrated, and only a composable architecture enables these kind of scenarios. You can't do that with a out of the box solution, because it's a closed shop.
All right. So basically the way forward is cloud native, API first, and using everything off of microservices, and these components. Now,
yeah, maybe it's worth spending a few minutes to sort out these buzzwords.
yeah,
I mean,
that's a good point.
Nowadays everybody and poor customers that have to deal with it. Everybody is now headless and API first and based on microservices and you name it. I mean, there are two important things that have changed and differentiate the, let's say, monolithic architecture to a modern architecture. The one is the composability. So I need to really be API first in my development as a modern vendor, because I need to give the option to everybody using my platform to attach other services to my service, and it needs to be why API first? What does it mean? It means that I don't need to log into the platform itself. I can get everything the platform serves through an API. That's basically it. So the composability, and then the cloud native part. For me, it's a second pillar, talking about I take away all this hassle of managing an application, taking care of uptime, taking care of SLAs, taking care of scalability. I do want to have scalability. I have peak performance issues and so on. And this can be solved by taking this hassle away from the customer to the vendor. The vendor takes care of it. That means cloud native. Everything is run by the vendor in a hopefully multi-tenant environment, because then he can manage it at a very low cost. And that's the perfect architecture in order to serve the service, the API, at a maximum or optimal service level. And that's the cloud native part. And the rest is really unimportant. I mean, headless comes with the APIs, right? If my platform has APIs, I can attach anything. I can attach a front end, but any IoT device, any ERP system, if it's front end or back end, it doesn't matter. So that's the two pillars I would say is important for this modern architecture. But now I forgot your question.
Well, yeah, no, I think we were saying that this is the way forward, and this is what you need to look for. I think my question now, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit and go more practical, like, is security an issue with, or what's the risk with having so many applications talking to each other, so many vendors having access to my data or other types of data? Because again, we're not just selling t-shirts online. This might be a more complex use case with a hospital vendor, hospital supply vendor having access to medical data or other types of data. So how does this fit into, how does security fit into the entire composable mix?
Well, there are, I think, also two aspects of security. One is how do I make sure that my platform, my services are up and running and my customers have a perfect user experience in terms of, yeah, they can access the shop 24/7 and they have a perfect performance whenever they come and visit the shop. So it's about security in terms of somebody takes care that I don't have downtimes. Nobody is hacking my services, and my data are secure. I don't have a breach, and these kind of things. So and it's like the example of a bank that stores that yeah, makes sure that my money is secure, and when there is no incident, I can store my money in my bedroom, but then I have to take caution, and I have to take action to prevent people from entering my home and doing this stealing. It's I think a similarity. When I give it to someone who does it for a living, then hopefully they have a better concept of taking care of the right things. So I would trust a vendor that has hundreds and thousands of customers doing this instead of me trying to do it just for myself and learning by errors and so on. So this is the same concept, as I said, with banks and everything else. So let the experts do this because they have gone the hard way and learned it the hard way on how to do it, but they are expert at the end. So security in terms of is my data secure? Do I prevent from breaching, uptime, and so on? And let's assume all the vendors do this and their services are secure. But at the end, I have to take care that combining all these services are secure as well, or are make sense and have the right architecture. And that's something that basically the customer, the companies have to take care of, or the agencies they work with, to come up with an architecture that makes sure that the services talk to each other the right way, that the data model is set up in the right way, and that the whole application or the whole 360-degree view is secure at the end, right?
All right, yeah, I got it. So actually, right, instead of having one vendor trying to figure out every single component of your entire system, and they might do some things very well, they might lack in resources in some other places, you're basically telling me if you work with the best of, and it's another buzzword, but best of breed vendors, so the best vendors for each individual component, you get the highest expertise possible for each individual component. So actually you're better off rather than having everything in your bedroom, as you said, and having to worry about how to manage this.
But still, someone needs to have in mind the right architecture, because services are exploding. I mean, you can find new companies with huge evaluations, or even startups that offer new services every day. So this landscape becomes more and more complex. So which services are the right ones for me? Which are necessary to drive my business? Which are necessary to differentiate? And this is the work that I need to do, because the vendors won't help me. They offer a service and they offer their service, and They hopefully make sure that everything is secure and perfectly performant and so on. But somebody needs to be the orchestrator. Somebody needs to be the director of an orchestra, you know, and making sure that I don't have 100 hornets and no violin, because then it sounds like a little bit odd. So make sure somebody needs to have the idea of what kind of services I compose and how do I plug them together, and make sure that the whole system works smoothly. And this needs to be the head of technology, the persona that we have talked about, or an implementation partner that they hire, or the agency. And this is something nobody will guide you through. And in the monolithic approach, I mean, there was a solution that was described what you can do with it, and sometimes you really adhere to what the functionalities are and use it as designed, and then you are fine. But you are limited to what the vendor told you the product can do. In this world we are talking about now, is you want to be unique, you want to be different, you want, or you need to, as we said, yeah, there's no option. If you want to play that game, there's no option, you need to be there. But you need to have an idea yourself on how to compose these components, because nobody will do it for you. The agency can do it. And
yeah, what is, like, for the people watching and listening in, what is the most common practice? So do they have to have their mind set up as to how they want to have an architecture run, or is it a working project with the platform vendor, with an agency, with some of the services? Like, is it a team effort, or does the company that is changing their commerce infrastructure already know this is how I want to do it, and then I just pick out the best solutions for everything?
So ideally, when customers approach vendors, they already have a clue on how this could look like. I mean, there are analysts out there who can give you a clue on how it could look like. There are blueprints. There are papers out there. People who have done it before. You can visit a show. You can listen to people who have done it before. So peers, customers who have gone through this journey, and they talk about the do's and don'ts. So if I were a customer, I would listen to those. And come up with a best practice. But at the end, you want to be unique, right? If you do it like the blueprint of your peer, then you become similar as your peer. It's a me too. And but the power that you have in your hands by using a composable architecture, you need to make this the linchpin that differentiates you, and that's the magic thing, because you have an idea of a service that you want to provide to your customers, which nobody else has, and this architecture gives you the opportunity to implement it. But you can't copy and paste it from somebody else. Yeah, you can copy and paste maybe, yeah, the standard way. You don't need to reinvent things that are commodity, even in this architecture. So I would say you don't need to build your own pricing service. You don't need to build your own product service, even customer services or checkout services. All these kind of commodity services, you don't need to bother about. You can plug and play. You can choose them, buy them from vendors, integrate them, all fine. But when it comes to your specific services and your use cases on the front end side specifically, then it's about, okay, what is the differentiator? Why is my shop, my experience better than the ones that are in the market as well, and then try to compete and steal my stake?
And speaking of stake, like, what about the costs of like, of course, it's going to be a huge undertaking to re-platform in the first place, and you go to that entire process. But from a perspective of total cost of ownership, doesn't all of this add up? Like adding the cost of every single service, doesn't that come up to a very large sum at the end that might cost you way more than your monolithic solution?
Yeah, and this is a huge topic. Most of the customers struggle with, because you can't compare apples with oranges here. In the monolithic world, you bought a product, sometimes on premise even, you bought a license fee, you paid a license fee and you paid a maintenance fee, and then you had costs attached to it because you had to run the system, you had to host it somewhere, you had to invest costs, sometimes your own labor costs, to keep this up and running. And in the composable world, there are total different costs and total different ways of charging. So in the composable area, for example, you don't need to bother about running the system, application management, migration project services, all these kind of costs that were attached to the old monolithic approach are gone. You pay a fee mostly to all the service providers that is based on consumption or based on a flat rate, which gives you a very predictable amount of money that you spend with your vendors, and they take a lot of costs, of hidden costs away from you. So maybe you don't need to have two people doing the application management, the monitoring, to watch performance and then add servers to the platform because you approach peak performance like on Black Friday. All these costs you can diminish, but you have other costs that you need to take into account. Yeah, the complexity is bigger, so you need to invest way more in the architecture, in your innovation. I mean, you don't do this as a project and say, okay, I go to composable commerce and in a year the project is finished and then I'm on top of my competitors. That's not the case. You do this because you want to be able to compete. This enables you to continuously add services and features and user experiences to your stack. And of course, this is attached with costs, but at the end, you get more out of it than in the early days or in the monolithic area, because you invested in your company. It's not costs, paying for a product or a tool. It is an investment on my competitiveness. And that's a different thing. So it's really hard to compare costs. Everybody who tries to do it will fail, because you really need to translate which costs do I have today, including all the hidden costs, and then which costs will I have in the future, taking into account that the solutions from yesterday to today or tomorrow will not compare. So I would not say that things become cheaper or you save money. This is not a savings game, to be honest. Yes. But as we said before, you don't have a choice. If you want to compete, you need to go this route. There is no option. Everybody says that, who has been in this business for more than a month. And the question is just, how do I get there with reasonable efforts? And this drives me back to the architecture, and you need to be on top of it. You can't rely, you shouldn't talk to 10 vendors telling you that they have the best product. This is annoying because you have so many people and salespeople coming to your meetings and then tell you that they have that's the wrong way. Don't talk to these people. Come up with an own idea, consult with agencies that have done it before, and then really look into the details who is offering a service that adheres to the paradigms that we just talked about. And there are a lot of vendors out there that don't do it, but everybody's using the buzzwords.
Yeah. So basically, you only have to do this once, right? So you're changing towards this, the way I'm understanding it, you're changing towards a composable platform, and you can then exchange services. And if something you are outgrow a service or you need an additional, you're just going to optimize those services and have your architecture evolve rather than delete everything and start from scratch. Or did I get this wrong?
Yeah, that's a very important point. So you never have to migrate again. You do this once. That's a bold statement, and it is at the end it's true because it comes with the architecture. So in the monolithic area, you bought a product and it had a version, and it was good for 3 to 5 years, and then there was another version that you had to migrate to because otherwise the components didn't talk to each other anymore, and your operating system didn't want to support it anymore, and so on. So you had to migrate to the new version, and then this went on and on and on. Maybe adding new features, maybe being more modern than the older one, but not really innovative. So it didn't change the way you worked, and it didn't give you much more functionality than before. Maybe at a certain degree. Changing to a composable commerce architecture means you have a blueprint with a lot of services that you compose, and there is no such thing as a migration, because what should you migrate? You have services that are closed and they do a certain specific thing, hopefully very well, but your solution is orchestrated with lots of services that you may change one by one, or enhance or build new services, but your whole architecture is nothing that needs migration, because the solution is basically composed of components. And these components, if the vendor adheres to the new paradigms, will never break. So the contract with the APIs, with the services, is forever, hopefully. I mean, what is forever in this industry? But at least you don't need to worry today of any migration, because the service will be there and it will be fine. But what you will do when you go to the composable commerce architecture will give you the opportunity to continuously improve, continuously add new functionalities. So basically where you go from is from a migration project every 3 years to a continuously improvement of your whole stack. And so it doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything with your platform. You can leave it alone for 3 years and all is fine. That's not the idea behind it, right? The idea behind it is to continuously have the opportunity to add new services to the whole stack, connect capabilities, add capabilities from vendors, and sometimes maybe exchange components, because there is a better one in the industry that you can just exchange very easily, because the only thing you need to do is to change the address. The other services that need data from this service need to talk to. So that's a completely different architecture, but it doesn't mean you have less work to do. But the investment of the work and resources that you put in is an investment in competitiveness, and it's not cost to keep a system up and running.
That's very well put. And just a couple more questions, and I think we'll hit the hour. So one of them was, does it do you see any trends in the people you're talking with in terms of verticals, or where are the most early adopters, or where do you see the most movement? In which verticals do you see the most movement in changing the infrastructure and adhering to the new composable architecture approach?
So there is really not a pattern to say, okay, fashion industry, that's the one that needs to go fast. There are examples in basically all the industries and verticals, because the question is not in which industry am I in. The question is, do I want to compete in the market through my online presence? If I don't want to do that, then it's fine. I don't need to bother. But maybe I have a competitor, and I see this in the steel industry, in the healthcare industry, in all the industries. There are competitors moving fast, and then everybody else gets this wake-up call and says, okay, now we need to think about on how we can catch up and maybe get in front, because this is true for every industry. If I don't move and I have competition online, then there is no option. That's bad news for everybody. But for the ones that took the decision, let's become technology leaders. They have everything available to their fingertips to start even now. I mean, we are still in the early adopter phase. If you look at the installed base of the ancient monolithic approach to the composable commerce, we are still in the growth phase, right? So it's still the early adopters, but you see that throughout the industries, in B2B, in B2C. So it hits both segments. And the only question is, am I in a competitive online market or not? So if I'm the only airline, to make an example, in a country, and I don't need to bother selling my tickets at a huge user experience. I have a company in mind, but I don't say the name. You can offer poor services. I mean, you don't need to bother, right? People have to buy the tickets in your online shop. But if there are like 3 vendors and one is really moving fast, and then you need to catch up. So you see that in every industry. There will be one player moving fast, and then everybody needs to decide, do I follow? Do I want to compete? Do I want to become number 2, 3, 4 in my industry, in a specific region, and so on? Or do I not want to go that route, which is, yeah, a decision, I think, a very risky one.
Got it. Well, I for one, I think everyone would want to compete and take the next step forward and outbid their competition. But like for everyone who's listening in, what are the next steps to do so? Like where can I go and inform myself aside from Googling composable commerce? Should I just talk to some vendors? Should I reach out to some agencies, or first off discuss it internally and what are the immediate next steps for change?
Yeah, of course, I would say go to Emporix and they will tell you. But a serious advice for customers will be, if you don't have the experts in house, watch out for maybe people who have done it before. I mean, they are hard to find, or people who have experience in this kind of industry already, in the composable industry, and maybe build the practice, build this new entity that is a speedboat within your company, which drives innovation. That's really important. And then once you have the skills in house, and if you don't want to hire people, you can use experts in terms of agencies, system integrators, consultants out there who give you a clue on how this could look like, come up with a blueprint, come up with an architecture. Also, you need to know, you know best about your business because it is hopefully unique, and you know your competition well, and you have maybe an idea on how to overpass them, which kind of service you need to offer. And once you have done this, of course, you can go out and ask analysts and independent analysts, independent agencies as well to come up with an idea. And then I would talk to, of course, some of the vendors out there, but talking to vendors of composable services is more check out if they really deliver what they promise. I mean, it's a service and it should be there. It should come with SLAs. It should have the functionalities I'm looking for. But these vendors will not tell you how the overall architecture look like, because that's your business. So when it comes to checking out all the services available in the industry, I would rather do this healthy check and really see who is the best one delivering on the promises. And today you can easily do that. You can easily check it out because you can ask for a trial account. You can, hopefully they give you one. Otherwise, the question is, are they really API first and cloud native? And you can do an easy POC, easy MVP to choose the right components, because everything should be open, everything should be well documented, and everything should be easy to understand. Otherwise, it's anyhow the wrong vendor of these services. And the ones that don't do it, they are the wrong ones. And earlier in the monolithic area, I would say, customers bought on slideware. So the vendors came and they showed slides and they showed all the functionalities that they offer. And then you had to buy the license. And once you got your product, and then you figured out, well, some of the stuff is in there, but some they may be over promised. This is not possible anymore in the composable commerce, because as we said, if you adhere to the paradigms, there is no hidden promise, because you can check it out tomorrow if I adhere to my paradigms. And that makes it a different approach selecting services. I wouldn't buy a service that I haven't checked out myself on functionality, on performance, on data security, and so on.
Great. So free trials and testing out everything on a small scale is going to be key before moving forward. Well, Udo, thanks a lot. I think this was really, really helpful, at least for me. I learned a lot, and I hope for everyone listening in as well. She'll definitely do this again soon. And thanks for taking the time for this discussion.
Sure. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thanks a lot. And everyone listening in, thank you too for tuning in, and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.